Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's another episode of the Spartan Shadows podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris, and I'm joined with my co host, Emmett. Zach unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, but the two of us are here. We're going to recap a couple days worth of MSU sports that we've missed since our last recording, round up what's happened in hockey, some basketball news, and an unfortunate West Coast trip for basketball. And then we've got softball starting today, and then we'll end the show with a quick recap because signing day was this week for football. So we'll wrap that up and give you some kind of overview of all that. So thanks, of course, for everybody for joining us. And Emmett, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Obviously, it hurts to drop both games in the West Coast swing. Michigan State is now not necessarily responsible for their own destiny. The route to the number one seed in Big Ten regular season championship is going to be decided probably in the next couple weeks, especially with this February stretch. All to be determined, really.
Yeah, they definitely put some pressure on themselves, that's for sure. But before we get into the basketball breakdown, let's start off with some more upbeat vibes. Not totally 100% upbeat, but the hockey team has been the source of much enjoyment for MSU fans this year. And since our last recording, they've had 3 games. So we're going to just kind of recap those for you. The last day we recorded was actually the night they played the second game of the Minnesota series at Munn. That game actually ended in a 3-3 tie technically, but MSU did pick up the extra point in the shootout. So that was a nice way to pick up an extra point in Big Ten standings. So another sweep of Minnesota, that really helped because, they're the team closest to us in Big Ten standings. Obviously, good to see good, solid effort from everybody involved there after the 9-3 shellacking they put on Minnesota the night before that. So good to see hockey end that weekend with another positive note. And then last week they went into a Thursday-Friday series in Columbus against the 10th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. The Thursday game, unfortunately, did not go well for the Spartans. They lost by a score of 4-2. Kind of came out flat to me, just basically, I don't know, just one of those games where it didn't look like everything was rolling at 100%. They were down Red Savage, of course, their captain, who's been out for a little bit, and then we later found out, unfortunately, that is going to be out for the rest of the season. He had season-ending surgery for an upper body injury. So unfortunately, the last run for Captain 21 Savage is coming to a early end. Red did announce he's going to be still staying with the team and doing what he can from the bench and behind the scenes. But it's tough to lose your captain. So maybe that had something to do with it. But for whatever reason, just didn't look as sharp as they did. It's okay. You drop a game every once in a while. No big deal. Just hopefully don't let it get you the next night. And that for sure was the case. They came out and beat Ohio State the next night to close out January with a 4-1 win. That game was a lot better. Everybody was sharp, clicking on all cylinders. Trey had a really good game, and it just kind of proved to be more of what we expect for MSU hockey. Really, the winning in the 4-1 game, we had goals from Tanner Kelly, Isaac Howard, Gavin O'Connell, and Daniel Russell added an empty netter at the end of the game. Trey actually picked up a secondary assist on that, so good to see Mr. Augustine getting an assist there. But yeah, just good way to get back on track and lead into the upcoming series this weekend, I should say. Before we really dive into that, Emmett, did you have any thoughts on the Ohio State or last Minnesota game or anything like that?
Well, the first game, at least for the Ohio State series, looked like a very uncharacteristic, especially when you compare to the first game of the Minnesota series where the Spartans couldn't stop scoring. It was just a very uncharacteristic team, just maybe demoralized with their captain officially being out for the year. Obviously, he had missed the 3 games before with injury, but that final news and official that he was done. Obviously a little bit demoralizing for our team. With that, to win, the technically tie but overtime win in the shootout, the Spartans remain they are undefeated in the second game of a series this entire year. For those who want to know the standings, not necessarily standing watching, the Spartans and Minnesota are separated by 2 points in Michigan State's favor, and obviously they have that crucial sweep of the Gophers. That's definitely going to help in case of any tiebreaker. They both have played 18 games, I believe, as well, if I'm not mistaken, in conference play. So there is no. It's not like when we segue into basketball here. Technically, Purdue is now a half game ahead of the Spartans because they've played and won one more conference game than the Spartans. So as far as the standings go, the Spartans still have a 2-point advantage in the Big Ten. Obviously, with how good this team has been, they will be getting an at-large bid no matter what. But you always want to have that extra hardware, that extra banner,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day. So obviously, a little bit of season left now, but very good to see MSU still at the top of standings.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got 6 games remaining in the conference schedule before the Big Ten tournament starts. This upcoming weekend's probably their toughest test, I would say, because we get 2 more with Michigan. The first game Friday will be at home at Munn. It is our teddy bear toss game, which is always fun. I love a good teddy bear toss. I actually went to the one for the Flint Firebirds locally this year. Good way to raise some cool presents and donate to charity, and it's a fun little bit. So anyone on campus or in the Lansing area looking for something to do Friday night, grab a teddy bear, new or gently used, and bring it to the game p.m. Friday night. And whenever the Spartans score, throw that bad boy on the ice, and they get donated to, I can't remember which charity they're doing this year, but some sort of children's charity, and that's sponsored by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So it goes to a good cause. So the Spartans and Wolverines will face off in East Lansing Friday, and then they move the Saturday game actually to Detroit because it is the last meeting of the season, in regular season play, I should say, for the Spartans and Wolverines. So we have the duel in the D that will be taking place at Little Caesars Arena Saturday night. 8 p.m. puck drop for that, and that game will be televised on Big Ten Network. So I think the Friday game will be on Big Ten Network Plus, of course, the good old Plus. Hopefully you have that. But the Red Wings play earlier in the day at Little Caesars, so the ice crew there is going to get some double duty. Red Wings take on the Lightning at 1, and then Michigan State at 8. So that's always fun. Call it a trophy game for a reason. That big duel in the D trophy that's outstandingly heavy will be up for grabs, and hopefully the Spartans can come away with that. After this weekend, we do get a week off. Then February 21st and 22nd, Penn State comes into East Lansing for the last home series of the regular season. Friday night is 90s night, and then Saturday night would be the senior celebration, senior night. And then to close the year, the week after, closing February and opening March, we travel to South Bend to play the Fighting Irish for 2 at Notre Dame. And then that wraps up the regular season. We'll get right into the Big Ten tournament, and then presumably somewhere in the NCAA tournament, hopefully. It's good to be...
I think that's a lock at this point, just looking at it. Also, not to look too far ahead in the future, also announced this week for out of conference next year, Michigan State will be traveling. They'll be shipping up to Boston to play Boston University. I believe that was announced via Boston University's starting to announce their ticket sale packages for next year, and it was confirmed that the Spartans would be traveling up to Boston. I believe probably late September, early October, much like this year's Boston College game was in East Lansing.
I believe so too, yes.
And I know there's a decent smattering of Boston Spartans. I joined that Facebook group when I went up there for football. Hopefully they'll be able to, show out and overrun Boston's rink with "Go Green, Go White" chants.
Yeah, that would be great. Should be a fun playing those East Coast schools. Boston College, Boston University, always means a little bit more. They've got it's kind of always gives me like Big Ten SEC vibes in football, or Big Ten ACC from basketball back in the day. 2 of the premier.
You want to play the best.
Yep, 2 of the premier conferences, and like you said, you want to play the best talent. Adam Nightingale's kind of taken the Tom Izzo approach of playing anybody, anytime, anywhere, and that's one of the reasons this has helped turn the program around a little bit, in my opinion, because you get that stiff competition and are able to play against teams that'll get you ready for what it's like in the postseason. So BU, while they're not necessarily having the best year, they're still playing very well and probably will make the NCAA tournament. Could be a team we have to play this year. I don't exactly know how much talent they're going to lose going into next year, but they've got a ton of talent, including Cole Iserman, who was selfishly somebody I wanted the Red Wings to pick in this last upcoming draft. They didn't. He is a very talented freshman that plays for BU this year. I don't know if he's going to be there next year. It might be time for him to make the jump to the NHL, of course, but you never know. Maybe he wants to come back one more year. You saw that a lot with Boston College's players, with like Ryan Leonard and some of the other talent they have there that wanted to come back and maybe try to take a shot at winning a national championship. So we'll see who's still on the roster, but it should be a good matchup nevertheless. So.
One more thing also, that for Michigan State hockey recruiting, it's not officially confirmed by any sources or whatever, but I believe Lucas Van Vley likely will not be continuing his career with the Michigan State Spartans.
Yeah.
I remember for his program he currently plays with, the Spartan logo was removed from the roster. When you see the matchups, you normally see for unders that you see the college they're committed to, and then for college games, whenever you see the lineups, you would see the pro. You'd see the pro team who they have the rights are with, and right now, and I believe Van Vley, sorry for butchering the name here. He did not have that at his most recent game, and I believe Jer Bear looked at his socials, and any mention of Michigan State was completely removed. So that's mostly it's officially unofficial, but
yeah, I'm not sure until obviously he says it or something official gets released, but looks like it's trending that way. Kind of a bummer. Lucas Van Vley is a pretty talented kid. He's played pretty well for the U.S. national development team. Hockey idol is Nick Lindstrom, so if you want to tie that into a hometown connection there, but I think his career path is probably going to take him in a different direction. So best of luck to him, of course. And Adam Nightingale's got some very talented players coming in within the next few years as well. So while you don't like to lose anybody, especially someone as talented as him, we do have some talented guys coming in. So hopefully that doesn't hurt too bad. But that will, I believe, wrap up the hockey talk, unless there's any more you had to add in there, Emmett. I think we covered it all.
No, nothing off the top of my head. Sorry about that.
You're good.
I remember MSU Hockey's been in the news a lot, whether it's injuries or leading the standings. I've seen a lot of MSU Hockey on my feed, and it's always great to see them being mentioned as opposed to being one of those just afterthoughts of a program.
Absolutely.
Which it had been for my entire time as a student up at MSU.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's good to see him again. And actually, plugging another, this is not ours, but this guys over at Spittin' Chicklets did a college night at MSU earlier this year for the Notre Dame series when they were in East Lansing. And Mike Grinelli, one of the hosts of Spittin' Chicklets, was in doing their Chicklets U series, and they got a huge behind-the-scene tour of the facilities, everything that MSU has to offer. Red Savage and Isaac Howard were showing them around, and you got to see pretty much all the new state-of-the-art renovations at MUN and all the cool stuff that the program has to offer, and special appearances by Adam Nightingale, Tom Izzo, Cohen Carr dunking over a human being. So if you guys have not watched that, I would check it out on YouTube. I think it's under the Spittin' Chicklets channel, but if you search Barstool MSU or Spittin' Chicklets MSU, it's a really fun series, and having it in East Lansing was awesome to watch and to see some of the behind-the-scenes stuff for MSU Hockey. So if you're an MSU Hockey fan, go check it out because it's really cool. But that will do it for hockey. Let's transition into some less upbeat vibes. Basketball. While they have been playing out of their minds so far this year, we kind of had a feeling a little bit of a regression was coming. We talked about how February's schedule is going to be a lot tougher. While USC and UCLA aren't exactly the top-tier teams in the league, going out west and having to play a long extended road trip on the West Coast was never something that was going to be easy. And boy, did that sure come to fruition. Before we get into the losses out west, we did not quite yet touch on the Minnesota game, which was the game before all that. That game was Tuesday, January 28th. Emmett was there. That was at the Breslin Center. The Gophers at the time were coming off a 3-game win streak against Michigan, Minnesota, and I think Iowa. Yeah, so they were playing some good basketball in a good stretch, and the Spartans came out and, we'll say waxed them. The final score on that game was 73-51 MSU. At that point, that had put MSU up to 18-2, I believe. Trey Holloman led the way with 12 points. I think all in the first half, right?
All first half.
Yeah.
Yep. All first half threes.
Yep, he was raining threes from beyond the arc in the first half. Jaden Akins added another 10. Xavier Booker had 10. And it was a pretty dominant stretch. Was up big for a while. At the end of the game, even Jared Norman and Kurt Tang got some minutes towards the end of the game, so it's nice to see them get in and get some playing time. Carson Cooper had 11 boards. Jackson Kohler had 8 points and 7 boards. So
Richardson, a career-high 8 assists that game as well.
Yep, I was just going to say Jace had 8 assists and Jeremy Fierce had 6 assists. So it was all around a good effort from the Spartans. They shot 45% from the field. Free throw percentage was a little bit down, but they out-rebounded Minnesota by double almost. So yeah, that's obviously always a key to victory for MSU basketball is winning the rebounding battle and getting out in transition, and they sure did. So, Emmett, what were your thoughts from the Gophers game?
At the start of the game, it was just I don't want to say sloppy game, but it was not pretty basketball. Through the first 8 or 12 minutes, I believe there were 21 combined points and 22 combined fouls or turnovers. It was just not... Both teams weren't sharp, but Minnesota was trying harder to lose, it felt like. And MSU was able to, especially with that, Trey Hallman had a 9-0 run in 55 seconds, hitting back-to-back-to-back threes. All assists from Jace Richardson, by the way. It was just the Spartans pulled away with the back-to-back-to-back threes and never really looked back. And at one point, I believe they led by 20 or 22 with a handful of seconds left in the first half, and then they kind of just kept it around that mark the rest of the game. Minnesota was able to put up 35 in the second half, but when you put up 18 first half points, you're not going to do much. The 53 points were the best defensive effort by the Spartans this year, if I'm not mistaken. Trey Hallman hitting 4-3. He's a Minneapolis native, hitting 4 threes against his hometown team, always good. Ben Johnson in the press conference. Ben Johnson, head coach of Minnesota, not the head coach of the Bears, by the way. Ironically, the Gophers also have a Caleb Williams on the team, but we'll not get into that. But yeah, Ben Johnson said he always seems to hit the big shots against us. I remember watching him at the Big Ten tournament, this one ironically. Always seems to be sharper again when he's facing the teams from, the Twin Cities.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, not a whole lot to talk about because it was just a resounding effort. So
its Green Trap game, it was not.
Yeah, that's what I think surprised me the most because you knew the team was going to focus on the tough schedule coming up in February and heading out west. And I know Minnesota's not been the best teams this year so far, but they were playing good basketball coming in, and you just thought, this might be a case where maybe they're not 100% focused, and it certainly had them ready to go, and that notion was quickly dispelled. Good for the guys. It was nice to see a dominant win for once, because that had been kind of hit and miss of late. I brought up the free throws because they had shot 75% from the free throw line in the Minnesota game, which is, about average from where they're at as a team, but we are kind of used to seeing MSU do really well from the free throw line this year specifically. I know not in the past, but I bring that up because now as we transition over to the West Coast trip in the USC game, that to me was one of the things that stuck out as maybe one of the reasons why MSU lost against USC. Both games out west, it kind of started off with MSU got down early pretty significantly in both games, and then had to kind of claw and fight and grind their way back. In the first half, to me, USC came out, to me, firing from three. I didn't write the stat down, but I felt like every three they threw up went in, and they just got
The
out
more
to
contested it was, the better shot it seemed to be.
yeah,
From
absolutely.
what I observed of the game, when it was an open three, it was about 50-50 if it goes in.
Yeah.
When you were contested, Cohen Carr, Jeremy Fears draped all over the guy, oh yeah, that thing was a swish. That thing didn't even need the backboard.
Yep, and it was crazy. They were just hitting acrobatic shots and um, proved to get out pretty big. MSU cut it close. I believe they were down 3 at half going into the halftime, but then second half started and USC jumped out of the gates again, got up 10 or 12 or so, and then MSU had to fight and claw back, and unfortunately just couldn't get ahead at the end. USC ended up winning 70-64. Your scoring leaders for that game, Jeremy Fears had 12 with 6 assists. Jaden Akins had 11. Cohen Carr had 9, and I thought played pretty well again. Jace Richardson had 8. So that was your kind of scoring threats. But yeah, just shooting, I think what we ended up going 33% from the line, which in a lot of games that's good for MSU. I know they've been hit and miss. I'll take 33% from, I think I said the line a second ago. Sorry, I meant from 3. So
The arc, not the line.
yeah, the arc, not the line. But MSU shooting 33% from 3 on most days I would take. But in this case, they went 58% from free throw. And when you lose by 6, it's just, that's...
And missed eight
Yeah.
free throws. I think they went to the line 19 times,
Yep.
had only 11 makes.
Yep, missed 8. So that coupled with the rebounding battle being about even, they did out rebound USC by 1, but it was much closer than, say, the Minnesota game. And when you're not getting the second chance opportunities that you were necessarily getting in other games, plus missing some free throws when you're fouled, I think that was a determining factor in this one. Credit to the USC guys, Wesley Yates, Chibuzo Agbo, and Desmond Claude, the 3 guards, went pretty crazy. They had 19, 15, and 14, and that was the bulk of USC's offense, but we couldn't stop them at times.
No, more evidence for like, this is definitely more of a, like this one, even though I did not go out to the game to watch it, I can assure you I was not box score watching that game, because the stat of MSU winning that rebound battle by 1 shocks me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we all remember that possession. I believe there were 6 minutes left in the the second half, where I think the Trojans got one on a 4th or 5th chance basket, something disgusting.
Yeah.
And that kind of led to Carson Cooper being subbed in at the end of the game, as opposed to, I believe, Kohler or someone was who I think Twitter was calling for, saying that why did we have Cooper in instead of someone else? And then another thing that stood out to me, Cohen Carr, he has been phenomenal. I believe he went 42 for 46 from free throws or something along that line. He regressed to a 1 for 4 game. Little one-off, not a big deal, but obviously leaving 3 points on the line in a 8-point loss, obviously in a 6-point loss,
Yeah, 6
obviously could help make a difference. But yeah, just I would say frustrating, because this is a team the Spartans should have beat, but they were never really out anything. It was just a lot of self-inflicted mistakes, which, as someone who's watched this team, there was never this team is just bad or getting outplayed and you have no hope for the tournament. This is just, okay, these are mistakes that you don't want to see from your team, but you would rather see it in early February than see it in late March, where one bad game means you're done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I didn't necessarily see anything, that I'm just like, oh, that's not good and we need to fix that. I mean, the free throw shooting, if you have a game in March where you shoot 50-something% from the line, yeah, that could be your tournament, but by and large, that's never the end-all be-all. So I thought they played okay. Like I said, coming out just kind of, I don't know if it was travel or what, they just didn't seem to come out on fire like they have in other games. So maybe that was it, the slow start. And I'm going to get into that
If
more.
you want to make excuses, like you could say they went out west, or Jace Richardson, I believe that Izzo said after the game, had not practiced most of the week because of an injury.
Yeah.
So if you want to make those excuses, you can make them, but at the same time, this is a game that was winnable, and Jace Richardson shouldn't be responsible for getting the defensive rebound that prevents a 4th or 5th chance scoring opportunity.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be expecting your 6 foot to be the guy to save the team from themselves in a situation like that.
Yeah, all fixable stuff. So that was, I guess, the reoccurring or reassuring thing, I should say. And then fast forwarding into UCLA, this wasn't as, I don't know how I want to say this. This wasn't as frustrating as a loss, I don't think. MSU again came out kind of flat. Did get down early, big. I think they were down maybe 14 or so at one point, roughly. And credit to the Spartans, as this is one thing I will say. They absolutely clawed their way back. They made this a game. They actually brought it into the point. UCLA won 63-61, by the way. They brought it to the point where with about, 20 seconds to go or 10 seconds to go, MSU had possession going down in a tie game to score a basket and potentially win the game. So unfortunately, I don't know why, and this is nothing against Jackson Kohler. He's played outstanding this year. I don't know why the option there was Jackson Kohler down low in the post, trying to make post moves to shake somebody. Obviously, everybody and their brother knew Jaden Akins was probably the first thought at, but I don't know if they were just defending him well enough to where they didn't feel comfortable for him trying to get the shot or what. But Kohler got
and he ended up taking the three late,
yeah.
super late in the game in the final possession, because the possession we are talking about right now, for context, is the second to last possession of the game.
Yeah,
just to clarify things.
Yeah, so we had the chance to go up two. Unfortunately, Jackson Kohler had a one-on-one move, missed. Had a chance at the rebound, didn't get a putback, and UCLA came up with the ball with like 7 seconds to go. They came down and scored a basket to give us, or I think they scored a basket with 7 seconds to go. And then we did have a shot to run down the court. Akins took a three, which would have won the game. Rim just a little short, hit the rim and did not go in. So unfortunately, yet another case. I saw multiple people talking about this on Twitter, and I agree. One of these times we're going to have a game-winning shot, because it feels like we've had maybe 6 or 7 games in a row where, like, not individual games in a row, but the last 6 or 7 chances we've had to win a game on a game-winning shot just hasn't fallen, or a game-tying shot. We can't hit the big shot.
When was the last time we had one?
The last one I can remember was Miles Bridges' game winner over Purdue, and that was a long time ago. I was going
to go back even further. I was going to say Valentine on Valentine's Day. So good memory on the Bridges, or else I would have said Valentine on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it's been a while since then. I hope Miles wasn't the last one, but that's 2018 or so. So it's just one of those instances we had a shot to either tie with a last second shot or win on a last second shot. I guess that's not fair. Tillman had that layup in Champaign over Kofi Coburn. That might have been the last one that actually went in.
Winston off the backboard, yeah.
Yeah, that might have been. But that again was 19 or 2020, one of the two. So we're going on.
I think you added a year. I think you made the streak a little more respectable by a year.
Yeah, so it's been a while, but either way, MSU loses at UCLA 63-61. 3-point percentage a little bit worse. Shot 22% from three, not great. Free throw percentage did come up. They were roughly 85% from the line, so that's good to see. They dominated the glass against UCLA, almost doubled them up 45-27. So it's what you want to see, and credit Tom Izzo and the staff. They did everything they could. They got down big, and they clawed their way back and had a chance to win, if not should have won the game, but just couldn't get the shot to fall. So unfortunately, you can argue, they probably shouldn't have been in that position because they are a better team than UCLA. But at UCLA at night, tough place to play. UCLA is a talented team. It's just, unfortunately, another one you couldn't pull out.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just going to look at box score, you have, Akins 15 points, Kohler 8.7 rebounds, Fears 6.6 rebounds, insane statistic. But Jace Richardson, I remember this was one of my quick thoughts on the game, was Richardson had arguably one of his worst games, which it's a freshman in his first year and starting to really get into the meat of that Big Ten schedule. You can't expect him to be the end-all be-all this year, but at the same time, disappointing to see. But he's a freshman coming off of an injury, really playing this advanced competition night after night after night for one of the first real times in that collegiate setting. So
yeah, and I will say UCLA did a good job at times of defending Jay and not trying to give him such looks that he's gotten before.
That
Um,
last possession, my big question, instead of taking that Aiken 3 and dribbling out, if you're looking at it through still shots, you might have been able to get a lob to Cohen Carr. Not sure how viable that would have been, but I remember there's quite a few times if you pause, you might see something there, but obviously there's a million things going on, and it's really easy to be an armchair point guard.
yeah, well, and Jaden's the guy on this team I want taking the last shot, and so he had what he thought was a clean look, and he almost hit it. It wasn't that far off, so I think the game was lost on the Kohler possession. Personally, I thought you could have got a better look at a basket to go up there, and then also defensively, unfortunately, you did not run the best defensive set to try to stop UCLA from taking the lead there. The biggest question for me, and it was talked about kind of ad nauseum, just some of the rotation. And I don't want to sit here and act like I know basketball more than Tom Izzo. I don't. I don't know basketball maybe like a tenth of what Tom Izzo ever knows. But some of the personnel rotations down the stretch were kind of questionable. Carson Cooper was not having a great game, and he was on the floor late. I don't know if that was maybe a need because I don't recall anybody being in foul trouble, and I thought Jackson Kohler, other than the last possession, played a really good game, actually. Analytically, I think he was, +7 or so?
Yeah, he was first half alone. He was +7, and the team was like -13 without him
Yeah,
because he did have to sit in the first half. He was a player in foul trouble in the first half. He had to go to the bench with 2 fouls, and the team went from +7 to, believe by the next time he checked in, the team was down by 6 or something like that.
yeah. So, and I know foul trouble early on was an issue, but in the second half, it kind of evened it out. MSU had a pretty decent stretch of not getting bad fouls in the second half, so I don't know, but that was just one instance. Some of the lineup rotations at times were just kind of confusing. I don't know if there was a reason for that. I'm sure there was. I just, unfortunately, when you have fans online frustrated and losing their mind, this is what they're going to pick and point out. But we'll see. MSU welcomes Oregon to the Breslin on Saturday. Emmett will be there. Hopefully, that will bring the vibes up. Emmett maybe will be our good luck charm and get a win and get the program back on track. And Twitter may have a meltdown if we lose another game. Of course, that's where all the sane, rational people hang out is on Twitter. So it's, I expect it to be totally even keel takes either way. I would like to point out, I think it was 20. Justin Spiro had a really good stat about it. I think it was 2018, 2019, and 2020 when we had their 3 straight Big Ten championships. Each season we lost 2 or 3 games in a row in February, and everybody thought the sky was falling.
First week of February, too.
Yeah, first week of February. So this happens. The Big Ten schedule is a grind, even before we added new teams. Generally speaking, UCLA, USC, Oregon, they're pretty good basketball programs by and large. Maybe not necessarily this season, but overall they're good basketball schools. So we knew basketball was going to see a tough road when this conference realignment was. Football a little bit too, but there's some heavy hitters in the basketball programs and in the schools we added. So this is what you expect. And the Big Ten is the best conference in basketball almost every year, and this is what happens, unfortunately. So hopefully,
remember there was a statistic being floated around that MSU, like, through Izzo's tenure or the last 10 years or something, I believe, Michigan State wins like 34% of their games the first week of February,
yeah.
but then every other week is like 51% plus or something like that.
Yeah, every other week in the season, I think, was like above 50%.
I believe above 51 or 54 or something like that.
So, yeah, there's just apparently the first week
Early
of February
was haunting MSU again.
Yeah, maybe Tom Izzo's got a beef with groundhogs or something. I don't know, but yeah,
I'm starting that theory.
Yeah, I think either that or maybe it's the suit conspiracy all over again, rearing its ugly head. But
here we go again. No, I would not be asking that question.
But regardless, hopefully the vibes swap up. Oregon coming to town. They just got beat by a couple points by Michigan in Ann Arbor, so they're coming off a loss. Oregon started off the year pretty hot and has kind of cooled back a little bit. I don't think they're ranked anymore, to be honest with you. So be interesting to see how MSU responds. A couple of teams that are coming off some bad losses. before we switch sports and move on there, Emmett, anything you're looking for the game on Saturday or what you're expecting to see?
Just one thing to note, Xavier Booker is officially questionable for the game. He is dealing with an illness as we speak, so well wishes towards Xavier. Hopefully he is able to go in time for the game. If not, this is what the strengths in numbers means. This is what the team's been preparing for. Is that moment when you have a guy who's going to be limited in minutes, maybe not at 100, probably for sure not at 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you'll see a Michael Jordan flu game out of him. Maybe you won't, but at the same time, yeah, I was about to say, if you have a Xavier Booker 25-point outing, okay, just give that man the flu before every game.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I don't make the rules, but
absolutely. But no,
but this is what that strength in numbers.
Yeah.
Maybe you see more. I don't necessarily think it translates, but maybe you see more Kurtang. I don't think you're going to see more for as a result, but you could see more of Cohen Carr and Cohen Carr's athleticism. That could be a dangerous matchup. I wouldn't hate it.
I do think that should Booker miss the game or is limited, you're going to see more of the Cohen Carr small ball style lineup come in and utilize maybe the guards a little bit more and have Cohen play the 4 or 5. Yeah. So, but no, that's what you're saying. Strength in numbers. So far this season, we've done very well having 4 bigs that have kind of rotated in and out. You've got Zapala playing well. You've got Cooper playing well at times. You've got Kohler playing well at times. So you have other options, and then you can go small ball with Cohen Carr. You can do different things. Just got to play smart. One thing I didn't touch on in the UCLA game that has to kind of correct itself. Turnovers were a problem.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, neither of us really hit on it, but this is the first game I really think all year where turnovers stood out to me as like one of the big issues. I think this team's done pretty well overall with turnovers. So maybe it's just an anomaly game against UCLA. That's what I'm hoping for, but we'll have to see.
I love how we say it's an anomaly game because this team came into that stretch averaging like 11 turnovers a game, which normally for a basketball team, relatively high on the higher end of the scale. But when you factor in Michigan State teams of all time, I've seen this team turn the ball over 18 times and win by 12.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sitting there like, this was disgusting basketball. Let's do it again.
Yeah. Yep.
But then you have these 63-61 grinding games that you lose, and those 16 turnovers loom large. This isn't especially with this team not having an alpha 3-point shooter or an alpha scorer, you can't have that, we turned the ball over 16 times, but this guy scored 18 points and turned it over 6 times.
Yeah, in the past, you could rely on a Cassius Winston or a Tyson Walker to give you 20 to kind of offset that, but we don't have that necessarily. So we'll see. I think it's a winnable game. Like I said, I hope everything gets turned around, but it'll be interesting to kind of see where it comes out because it doesn't get any easier after that. We get Oregon, and then I think we get Indiana at home, who may not have a coach. My favorite rumor that I saw on Twitter today is that, I will back it up and say, confirm that it sounds like Mike Woodson is being, let go of, parting ways, forcibly retired at the end of the season. I did see a small movement on Twitter today from Indiana basketball fans saying that they should bring Dan Dockich in to end the season with. Please, God, if that happens, make it before the Breslin Center next week. There is no man, I think, that is more hated in East Lansing, and that would just be great for me to sit back and watch.
Another trendy rumor that actually has backing is potentially Michigan's current head coach, Dusty May, heading back to where he was an undergrad and a student assistant under legendary Indiana coach Bob Knight. That is something to monitor. I'm not against it, just because especially everyone who has a Twitter account saw all the trolling that U of M fans did saying Nick Marsh was going to leave the program for football. So I think it would be a little funny to see Michigan lose their head coach of the future after one season. I think that would be funny.
Me too.
And it might be a little bit of karma. But
I'm also going to use that as a really excellent transition to our next topic. Speaking of Nick Marsh, videos surfaced today of him getting some extra workout. Former wide receiver Mark Dell said he worked with him for a couple hours, I think, and famously now on Twitter.
I'm not going to say anything, but he's going to ball out. I believe he said something like just watching spring ball, he's going to ball out.
Yeah, and this all stemmed from a message Mama Tron posted on Twitter saying that she got a call from Nick saying, I feel different. Next year is going to be different. It's going to be good. So let's hope that's a good sign of things to come, and I'm going to use that as a transition because football had a big week this week. Yesterday was National Signing Day, Part 2, the final signing day. So your class of 2025 is officially set for the recruiting aspect of MSU football. No surprises on signing day. This time we had talked about it before. The rest of the Orchard Lake St. Mary's contingent did sign their national letters of intent. Bryson Williams. Bryson Williams, Antonio Johnson, and Darren Jones.
Darren Jones Jr. Yep.
Darren Jones Jr. All signed on. Darren Jones, I believe, is preferred walk-on. Correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And
so is wide receiver Nick Hardy, who was the fifth and final addition to the class.
Yes.
On signing day.
Anthony Johnson.
Did we have 4?
What? Did we have it? Hold on, I'll look.
We had 4 kids sign on signing day part 2, and then 5 OLSM kids. That's how I confused myself. My bad.
I was gonna say I think it was 4. The Orchard Lake St. Mary's kids. Antonio Johnson is an offensive lineman, 6'4", 285. He was somebody that probably would have committed to MSU in December, but he had some things that he needed to work out with Orchard Lake, and when he could move in, all that sort of things. Credit to him, he got everything straightened out that he needed to. He's ready to roll. He's locked in. Another good addition for the offensive line. Bryson Williams was one of the potential future stars of the class. He was a big target. He does really everything for Orchard Lake St. Mary's. I think he's going to play, running back for MSU?
He's had both running back coach Bohanfa. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name. Both running back coach Keith B, Coach B. Both him and Courtney Hawkins had posts about it. So either Jonathan Smith is playing coy with where Bryson Williams slots in, or he's gonna be that running back wide receiver hybrid. He's gonna be your Deebo Samuel, for example.
I was going to say Gibbs. So he's going to be the Gibbs Samuel kind of like do everything, I think, player. He played a lot of defense in high school too. He can play some linebacker. He could probably play some safety if he really wanted to, but I think he's going to be more utilized.
I think he's on the offensive side of the ball.
I think he's going to be more utilized offensively. But he signed. I was going to say he signed his letter.
Yeah. One thing to note about Bryson Williams, he actually based on how old he is, he will be playing his entire, unless Michigan State makes the college football playoff, I believe, Bryson Williams will be playing his entire first season at age 17. So just something to note, he's going to be even younger than Nick Marsh was when we were all talking about how young Nick Marsh is, etc. Bryson Williams just turned 17, I want to say, last month. So.
Yep. And then Darren Jones is another running back prospect, so he will be a good addition to that room as a preferred walk-on. And, that rounds out the class. The rest of it was the same as it was back in December. Overall, we'll do a kind of a deep dive into the recruiting class in its own separate episode coming up. I know Emmett, I'll let him kind of dive into it more between transfers and signees of the high school class. Position groups that we think are going to be the best out of all this. We both think our receiver group is going to be a lot better. And then I was going to say my biggest takeaway is the offensive line too.
For sure.
Those two position groups and then the cornerbacks all had depth issues last year, obviously with injuries. We did sign some corners. I think we have some really talented corners coming in. Of note, the receivers and the offensive line, I think the depth issue should be solved. I mean, we've got a ton of players coming in on the offensive line front, and then we have a lot of good players coming in at receiver.
Yeah, I would say the wide receiver and the offensive line groups, looking at both the portal and high school recruiting, are the biggest winners from this year's class. Heading into next year, my biggest question mark is that running back room. You lose Nate Carter and K'Ron Lynch-Adams. You gain Elijah Tolliver. You gain Jace Clorizio. You gain Zion Gist. but at the same time, you do not have any proven complement to Tao Tolliver, and once again, Tao Tolliver only played again at Sacramento State, so he is not. Yes, that's the same place Cam Scadaboo was from, but at the same time, you can't just say, "Well, he was from there," because you can point out a million different examples and say, "Well, this guy transferred from somewhere." It's not an assured thing. For example, I thought Jarrett Brassard was going to be the next best thing when he came in from Colorado. Never really panned out in his one and done year.
Yeah, exactly. I like Frazier and Tullis. Obviously, still on the roster. They're going to be good pieces.
For sure.
I think Clarizio could have a shot to play early. Bryson Williams, too, is going to be mixed in, I think. He'll get some playing time as a freshman, potentially.
I don't think Williams redshirts, that's for sure.
Yeah, so you never know how he could work into the fold. So there are definitely some pieces. It's going to be a young group, that's for sure. But the talent's definitely there. Hopefully health stays with it. But that'll be an interesting group to see. Wide receiver, we had some talented rosters. I don't want to diminish anything of what the last class's group or last season's group did. Obviously, Nick Marsh is the focal piece of the receiver room. He's going to be the number one. He's our big guy. Big alpha, if you want to call that. But I do like the pieces they added, starting with freshman Braden Collier, the Evan Boyd from Central. I got to fire up my chips a little bit here, but Evan Boyd, I think, he's a bigger bodied receiver. That's what I thought a lot of our receivers kind of maybe lacked a little bit outside of Nick Marsh last year. We didn't really have the
one shorter than Marsh.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm really high on putting Bryson Williams at wide receiver.
Yep.
I think he can be. I think you can put him in that slot, and if you're motioning him on jet sweeps, for example, you know how Michigan State loves the jet sweeps.
Oh God.
But yeah, you could definitely see Bryson Williams, at least a package, something like a Keon Coleman package that MSU had when he was a freshman.
Yep.
I think you can see a lot of that.
Yep, and Evan Boyd's another bigger guy, 6'3". Krishan McCray is one of the big, I guess, focal transfers. He's not necessarily a big body receiver, but he plays big.
5'10", but
yeah, he plays real big. He can make some outstanding catches in traffic and under duress, and I think he's a really good receiver in general.
Omari Kelly nearly put up 300 yards in a game last year. You can't overlook that. He's coming in from Middle Tennessee State.
Yep, exactly. And so and Charles Taplin, not necessarily the biggest guy, but he is fast and he can bring a lot of matchup problems. And then it's just
Rodney Bullard comes in from D2 runner-up Valdosta State, and Bullard had nearly 2,500 yards between his last two seasons at Valdosta, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
He had, I believe, 24 touchdowns and 2,500 yards in his sophomore and junior seasons. So,
and not to...
He is productive.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, no worries. No, I was just going to finish with he's just productive. And then you also have the other tallest receiver in the room as walk-on Jack Janacek. Mm-hmm. Not to overlook him, but at the same time, he also, I believe on TikTok, he's doing a lot of stuff with the MSU gymnastics teams just from sheer athleticism. So
yeah, he was
a special team base last year, and we saw people rise through special teams into majority playing time. So I wouldn't overlook someone like Janacek, for example. And then you have Jalen Brown, Austin Clay, both of them extremely athletic. Jalen Brown, super hard worker, multiple-time Scout Team Player of the Week. There is a lot of potential in this room for next year.
Yep. And to kind of finish on our Orchard Lake St. Mary's freshman incoming, he's not a receiver, but Jaden Savory, the tight end, one of the more athletic players. I mean, he was a standout basketball player for Orchard Lake St. Mary's and one of the better players on a team that featured superstar McDonald's All-American recruit Trey McKinney, who unfortunately didn't pick the right school to go to for basketball. But he, Jaden Savory was a big part of that basketball team, and he's a big athletic tight end, 6'6", 220. He can out jump pretty much anybody, and he can high point, and he's got some pretty good hands. So I think he could be a really good at receiving threat out of the tight end spot too.
I could see him playing much like an Ademola Failai role for the Spartans last year. Failai only had 2 catches for 4 yards, but they used Phalai to give Jack Velling a break, especially when Michael Masunas went down with an injury.
Yeah.
So you would see Phalai take a lot more of those, and then he would also occasionally motion out into the slot. 6'6", super speedy, super athletic. That's going to be a matchup problem. I could see Savory potentially not redshirting. Not sure how much the staff is going to look to develop his blocking skills and if they want to utilize that extra year, especially with Wyatt Hook coming off a redshirt season.
Yeah.
There is a lot for the staff to consider. Tight end is one of my position groups to watch. We won't learn much from spring ball if Savory is a summer enrollee, but that is definitely something to watch in the future.
Yep. So, yeah. So, congrats all around to the signees and transfers. Welcome to East Lansing. We're excited to have you all. I think overall this roster got a lot deeper, a lot. I guess the floor rose is a better way of me describing what I want to say here. Is
Yeah.
I think like you maybe didn't add a lot of that top end talent to where the ceiling's gonna be much different, which I don't want to kind of make it sound bad because I think the ceiling of the team last year was actually pretty high too. Unfortunately, we just had some injuries and some depth issues, but solving that last part, the depth issues, I think top to bottom, it's a lot better of a roster. If we do unfortunately get hit with a rash of injuries like we did last year, you're not going to see maybe as steep of a decline in some of the production at certain spots. So hopefully, that's also how you build a program. In my opinion, you want to get the depth, you want to get the extra bodies in, and then once you have a solid foundation, then you attack to upgrade it at a premium rate, I guess. So
I'll say it this way. Last year's Michigan State team had 19 offensive linemen on the roster. This year's Michigan State team has 19 offensive linemen who've played at the FCS or FBS level returning to their, at least practiced at the FBS or FCS level returning, compared to last year's squad, which had 10 or 11.
Yeah, I think 23 in the room, right? I believe.
Yeah, 23 in the room because you have the 4 true freshmen.
Yeah,
including walk-on Sean Rogers.
And then we did a whole big emergency episode on him. Connor Moore, the FCS transfer, one of the best offensive line prospects in the country in the transfer portal. So yeah, the step up in competition from FCS to Big Ten might be a bit, but I think if anyone's equipped to handle it, it's him. So hopefully you'll see a lot of improvement. So, but that's kind of the initial thoughts and reactions. Like I said, we'll do more on the football class as a whole, kind of break down each players in a different episode. We're looking to hopefully maybe get a guest on with us to help maybe break that down a little bit. So that will be coming hopefully here in the near future. And then, before we start wrapping everything up, I do want to shout out MSU Softball started today. Congrats to the ladies. They had a doubleheader against number 16 or number 15 Arizona. First game did not go so well. The second game started off well, but it looks like they're in a battle right now. So
not a pitching duel.
Yeah, not a pitching duel. Right now, the second game's in the third, and it is 8-6 Arizona. So hopefully the Spartans will come out on top in that one. But best of luck to the ladies as they get their season rolling. I know baseball starts relatively soon-ish, so we're getting to that point of the year where baseball season's a coming. Tigers are right around the corner for us here in Michigan too. So more sports transitioning over.
Baseball is tipping on, first pitch, I guess, for, proper sports here, is next Friday, I believe, against Western Michigan. And obviously in North Carolina, got to be at a warmer state in order to get that pitching started. A little bit cold here in Michigan to have your first pitch, I would say.
Yep. So I think that will do it. Any last bits you want to add, Emmett? I think that's all we have for today.
No, I don't have anything else that I can think of right now.
All right. Well, once again, everybody, we appreciate you guys following along, listening to us ramble on each week, and we certainly appreciate the following. We're going to certainly try to get you more content soon, start upping some of the stuff we do, and hopefully get some fun guests on soon. So we appreciate everything. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, hit us up on our social medias or follow us on whatever individually. I also will post our podcast link to our socials for the podcast itself. Follow us there. You can email us at spartanshadowspodcast@gmail.com. Look for some more fun stuff in the future. If you're in need of more MSU content, always check out the website, spartanshadows.com. we've got some good stuff in store as winter sports wind down, spring sports start, spring football's coming around the corner too. So excited to bring you all the content, and we appreciate you guys. So that'll do it. Make sure to check out Emmett in his live tweets from the Breslin this weekend. Emmett's brother-in-law and friend of the program, Matt Eichstadt, is going to be tweeting and covering, hopefully, from the Duel in the D for the hockey team this weekend. So if he is, you'll see the retweets and the mentions on social media, hopefully from him live at Little Caesars. So, yeah, that'll do it. All right. Thanks for following along, guys. And as always, go green.
Go white.